The rain had stopped just as the first guests arrived, leaving the air thick with the scent of wet earth and blooming night jasmine. Voss Manor loomed against the bruised sky like a relic from a forgotten era, its stone facade etched with centuries of secrets. Turrets clawed at the clouds, gargoyles leered from the eaves, and the grand oak doors swung open to swallow the arriving elite in a maw of golden light. Inside, the dining hall was a cathedral of excess, crystal chandeliers dripping from the vaulted ceiling, walls paneled in dark walnut that whispered of old money and older sins. The long mahogany table groaned under the weight of silver candelabras, fine china, and platters of delicacies flown in from Paris that morning: foie gras terrine, truffled caviar, and a suckling pig glazed to perfection. The guests were a curated gallery of power. Sir Edmund Hale, the granite-faced industrialist whose merger talks with Voss had soured like milk left in the sun. Lady Beatrice Ashford, a socialite whose diamonds could fund a small war and whose gossip could topple governments. A smattering of venture capitalists with Rolexes that ticked like bomb timers. And Reginald Voss, the son and heir, slouched at his father's right like a shadow reluctant to detach. Reginald was 45, broad-shouldered and brooding, his tailored suit straining at the seams from too many indulgences and too few convictions. He nursed a tumbler of single malt scotch, his dark eyes flicking between the faces at the table, as if mapping escape routes. And then there was Alara Kane. She moved through the periphery like a specter in service, her presence as unobtrusive as the silverware she polished in the mornings. At 28, Alara was the simple gardener, a title bestowed upon her with the casual cruelty of a man who saw the world in hierarchies of dirt and dominion. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight braid that swung like a pendulum against her back, and her overalls practical khaki stained with the day's loam clung to her lithe frame. Freckles dusted her nose from hours under the relentless English sun, and her hands, calloused from shears and soil, bore the faint scars of thorns long since pruned. To the guests, she was wallpaper, a girl from the village, hired on a whim to tend the manor's infamous gardens, those labyrinthine acres that sprawled behind the estate like a green labyrinth of secrets. But Elira was no village girl. 6 months ago, she'd arrived under the cover of a fabricated backstory widow of a farmhand, seeking quiet work after a tragedy that never happened. In truth, she was a ghost, buried deep in witness protection after the Prague debacle. The agency had scooped her up from the rubble of a safe house, her partner Jax's blood still warm on her hands, and planted her here, in the unlikeliest of graves, the dirt. Lay low, they'd said. Heal. The Bretva's reach is long, but not here. Voss Manor was a fortress. After all motion sensors in the hedges, cameras in the gargoyles' eyes, a private security detail that patrolled like wolves. Perfect for vanishing, yet vanishing chafed. Alara's skills honed in the shadows of Eastern European ops, where she'd infiltrated oligarchs' compounds as a maid or a mistress, mapping escape routes with a glance, and disarming guards with a whisper itched beneath her skin like an ill-fitted glove. Recon wasn't a job, it was breath, blood, instinct. And tonight, as she balanced a silver tray laden with crystal flutes of Veuve Clicquot, she felt the familiar coil of awareness tighten. The room hummed with undercurrents, Hale's forced smile as he clinked glasses with Voss, Reginald's fidgeting fingers drumming the tablecloth, Lady Ashford's sidelong glances at the men like a bird eyeing seeds. "Pass the salt, girl." Voss's voice cut through the murmur like a blade through silk. He didn't look up from his plate, where he dissected a quail with surgical precision. Alara glided forward, her boots silent on the Persian rug, the tray steady as a surgeon's hand. She extended the ornate salt cellar, its facets catching the light like diamonds in distress. Voss's gaze flicked up then, lingering on her with that predatory gleam that made her skin crawl. He was a man who collected vulnerabilities, like vintage wine, sipping them slowly, savoring the bouquet of fear. "Careful now, Petal," he drawled, his voice a velvet-wrapped barb. "Wouldn't want you fumbling and ruining the linens. Though, come to think of it, that might improve them, give 'em some character, like the weeds you grub up all day." Laughter erupted around the table, a brittle cascade that echoed off the paneled walls. Lady Ashford tittered behind a manicured hand, her rings flashing like warning signals. Hale's chuckle rumbled low, approving, while the venture capitalist joined in with nods that said, "Yes, Lord of the Manor, put the peasant in her place." Reginald's smirk was half-hearted, his eyes darting to Alara with something sharper than amusement curiosity, perhaps, or the flicker of recognition that she'd seen him slipping notes to the stables last week. Alara felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a flush she couldn't entirely suppress, but she channeled it inward, letting it fuel the slow burn in her chest. Simple gardener. The words were thorns, pricking at the scar tissue of her past. She dipped her head in deference, her voice a murmur of honeyed submission. "Of course, my lord. I'll mind my step." Voss waved her off with a flick of his wrist, the dagger on his lapel glinting a family heirloom. Or, so the staff whispered, from some long-ago duel in the family's Prussian roots. "See that you do. A man in my position can't afford clumsiness. Enemies everywhere. You know, lurking in the shadows, waiting for a slip." He leaned back, swirling his Bordeaux, the liquid dark as congealed blood. "But not here, not in my house." The conversation flowed on, a river of banalities laced with barbs. Stock tips that bordered on insider trading, anecdotes of boardroom coups, veiled jabs at Hale's faltering merger. Alara retreated to the shadows near the French doors, the tray balanced on one hip as she observed. It was a habit, this watching the way Voss's left hand trembled ever so slightly when he reached for his glass, a tell of the Parkinson's he'd denied for years. The way Reginald's gaze lingered too long on the decanter, as if calculating shares of the estate. The subtle shift in Hale's posture when Voss mentioned unbreakable alliances. Recon won a 401. People lied with their bodies long before their mouths. Outside, the gardens beckoned through the glass panes, a moonlit maze of topiaries and trellises that stretched into the fog-shrouded hills. Alara had mapped them in her first week, under the guise of weeding, the formal parterres with their geometric precision, giving way to wilder thickets where statues of forgotten gods, nymphs, and satyrs peered from alcoves overgrown with ivy. Hidden paths snaked toward a sundial older than the manor itself, and beneath it all, rumors of smugglers' tunnels from the estate's illicit past. Voss's paranoia had modernized the defenses, pressure plates under the gravel that hummed alerts to his wristwatch, infrared beams woven into the hedges like invisible veins. But Alara had found the blind spots, the deer runs where sensors faltered, the compost heaps that masked signal jammers. As the dessert course arrived, poached pears nestled in pools of saffron syrup, their skins glistening like forbidden fruit. Voss raised his glass for a toast. "To fortunes forged in fire," he intoned, his voice booming over the clink of crystal, "and to those who tend the flames without getting burned." The guests echoed the sentiment, but Alara caught the undercurrent. Voss's eyes locked on Hale, a challenge wrapped in civility. Hale met it with a nod, his granite face cracking into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Here, here, though some flames flicker brighter than others, Harlan." The tension lingered like smoke as Alara cleared the plates, her arms aching from the weight, but her mind racing. She stacked porcelain in the butler's pantry off the hall, the door ajar just enough to eavesdrop. Voss's voice drifted in, lowered now, laced with a gravel of secrecy. "Imminent, I tell you. That merger's a Trojan horse. Double the guards tomorrow and keep an eye on the grounds. Can't have some fool intruder trampling my roses." A murmur of agreement, then footsteps. Ilara slipped back into the dining hall, just as the party began to fracture guests drifting toward the drawing room for cigars and cognac, leaving the table a battlefield of crumbs and stains. Voss lingered, lighting a Cuban with a gold lighter that clicked like a cocked hammer. He caught sight of her then, stacking the last of the linens. "Ah, the faithful petal returns," he said, exhaling a plume that curled toward the ceiling. "Tell me, girl, what's the secret to those gardens of yours? They bloom like they're hiding something." Illyria paused, folding a napkin with deliberate care. Her heart ticked steady, but her mind flashed to Prague, Jax's laugh echoing in a cramped safe house, the way he'd tease her about her green thumb after she'd rigged a planter with C4. Hiding something? She met Voss's gaze for a beat longer than deference allowed, her green eyes sharp as shears. "Roots, my lord. Everything starts with the roots. You don't see them, but they hold it all up." Voss barked a laugh, genuine this time, though it dissolved into a cough. "Poetic for a dirt digger. Off with you then, earn your keep before dawn." She curtsied, mocking the gesture inwardly, and escaped through the service door, the cool night air slapping her face like a reprimand. The kitchens were a frenzy, scullery maids scrubbing pots that clanged like warnings, the chef barking orders in French-inflected fury. Ilara stashed her tray and slipped out the back, toward the stables where her quarters crouched a converted loft above the hayloft, sparse as a monk's cell. Narrow bed, scarred desk, a single window overlooking the east gardens. But sleep was a distant shore tonight. The bootprint nagged at her, a splinter lodged deep. It had been there that afternoon, while she'd pruned the espaliered apples along the east hedge, a task Voss had assigned with a sneer about making it presentable for civilized eyes. The soil was soft from the morning's drizzle, perfect for imprints, and hers were familiar, size 8, Vibram soles worn from months of tromping these paths. But this one? Pressed into the loam just off the path, half obscured by a fallen leaf. Size 11, at least European tread. The kind issued to mercenaries in the Balkans, with a distinctive chevron pattern that spoke of surplus gear from old Warsaw Pact stockpiles. She'd photographed it with her burner phone, the screen's glow hidden in her palm, then covered it with mulch to preserve it. Anomaly. In recon, anomalies were alarms. Staff didn't stray there. It was a service trail, rutted and forgotten. Guess? The dinner crowd was all limos and heels, no mudcake boots among them. Intruder, then. Or worse. Up in her loft, Ilara kicked off her boots and peeled out of the overalls, trading them for black tactical pants and a hoodie gear smuggled in her gardener's kit, disguised as pruning tools. The room was dim, lit by a single bulb that buzzed like a trapped fly. From a loose floorboard beneath the bed, she retrieved her go-bag, compact, always packed, with the essentials of a life in flight. The burner phone went in her pocket, its battery topped off via a solar charger hidden in the rafters. No signal here, Voss's jammers saw to that, but it had offline maps, a flashlight, and an encrypted drive with fragments of her old life. Schematics of common estate layouts, decryption algorithms, a ghost file on Jax, marked Deceased Prague 2024. She paused at that, thumb hovering over the icon. Jax tall, Irish, with a grin that could disarm a room and eyes that saw through her armor. "Partner," the file said. But it was more. Lover, anchor, the one who'd pulled her from the agency's grinder after her first black op in Kyiv. Prague had been routine intel on a Bratva arms deal, until it wasn't. The betrayal, the safe house compromised, the hail of 9mm that painted the walls red. She dragged his body 2 blocks, whispering apologies into the rain before extraction. The agency called it acceptable losses. She called it a scar that wept in the quiet hours. Shaking it off, Ilara laced her boots and descended the ladder, the stable's shadows swallowing her. Midnight cloaked the grounds, the fog rolling in from the moors like a living thing, muffling the world to whispers. She moved low, a shadow among shadows, hugging the yew hedges that bordered the east path. The air was crisp, laced with the metallic tang of impending frost, and her breath fogged in careful exhales. 50 paces to the print eyes scanning for movement, ears tuned to the night's symphony. Crickets rasping, a distant owl's hoot, the faint hum of a generator from the manor's west wing. There, the mulch she'd laid was undisturbed, the print pristine in the moonlight filtering through the branches. She crouched, gloved fingers tracing the edge without touching whorls deep, deliberate, as if the owner had paused to listen. Not a casual step, a placement. Scout? Marker for a team? Her mind cataloged tread matches Russian Spetsnaz surplus, common in Bratva hires, no soil transfer clean boots professional. Direction toward the manor, skirting the sensor line. A twig snapped, sharp as a gunshot in the silence. Elara froze, her body coiling like a spring. Adrenaline surged, sharpening the world to edges, the rustle of leaves 10 yards east, the faint scuff of gravel under weight. Slowly, agonizingly, she melted into the undergrowth, thorns snagging her hoodie like eager fingers. Through a gap in the foliage, she peered heart a steady drum, breath held to a thread. A figure emerged from the gloom, tall and hooded, the fog parting like a curtain for a ghost. Male, build athletic 6'2", 180, easy from the silhouette. Black tactical gear, matte to swallow light, a rucksack slung low across one shoulder. He paused at the print, crouching with the fluid grace of experience, his gloved hand hovering but not touching. Assessing? Erasing? He lingered a beat too long, head tilting as if scenting the air, then straightened, scanning the hedges with a sweep that made Alara's pulse spike. His face was shadowed, but a glint of metal at his belt knife, suppressor, caught the moon. He lingered, unmoving, and Alara's mind raced through protocols. Engage, no observe only. Agency rules for deep cover, but the coil in her gut twisted. This wasn't random. Voss's rant about threats echoed, and the figure's path mirrored the prints toward the manor, veering east, where the security thinned near the old grotto. Satisfied or spooked, he moved on, a wraith slipping into the fog toward the estate's flank. Alara counted to 30, then rose, thorns drawing pinpricks of blood on her palms. She tailed him at distance. Using the deer's run, she'd mapped a narrow game trail that dodged the sensors, brambles parting under her touch like old allies. The chase was a dance of silence, her steps feather-light, his purposeful. The fog a veil that blurred but didn't hide. He skirted the rose arbor, its blooms heavy-headed and perfumed, then ducked behind the sundial, a massive brass relic crusted with patina, its shadow hand frozen at dusk. There, he knelt again, prying at the base with a tool that clicked softly, multi-tool. Gerber marked the second, if her eyes didn't lie. A loose stone shifted, revealing a hollow. Small, dust-choked. He extracted something, a vial? No bigger than a thumb. Glass glinting faintly, then resealed it, scanning once more, before vanishing into the thicker copse toward the cellar's exterior grate. Alara held position, the night's chill seeping through her hoodie. Cache, she thought. Drop site for later retrieval. Poison? Intel? The vial's shape screamed chemical nerve agent. Maybe. Or something slower, like the ricin she'd seen in Belgrade. Voss's enemies didn't play fair. Whispers in the village pub spoke of accidents that left executives twitching in their beds. She waited 5 minutes, 10, until the fog swallowed even the echo of his steps. Then, retracing her path, she returned to the print, snapping more photos. Angle, depth, surrounding flora for timestamp. Back in the loft, door barred with a chair wedged under the knob, she synced the images to her burner. cross-referencing tread patterns against the offline database. Match 87 to Russian FSB surplus, flooded onto black markets post-Ukraine. Bratva favorites. Sleep clawed at her, but resolve hardened like frost on the window pane. The old man mocked her as his simple gardener? Let him. She'd played roles before nanny to a warlord's brat, courtesan to a double agent, and shed them like snakeskin when the time came. This estate wasn't a grave. It was a garden, and gardens hid their deadliest roots. By the time the first gray light of dawn fingered the horizon, Ilara had a plan sketched in her notebook. Microcams in the petunias tomorrow, a sweep of the grotto at dusk. Observe, uncover, and if the assassin came calling, well, thorns cut both ways. But as she finally drifted into uneasy slumber, Jax's voice echoed from the dream fragments. See it coming, Elle, before it sees you. Outside, the fog lifted, revealing the manor's silhouette impregnable. Or so Voss believed. Ilara knew better. Nothing was unbreakable. Not walls, not men, not the fragile veil between seen and unseen. Dawn crept over Voss Manor like a thief, gray fingers prying at the fog that still clung to the gardens like a guilty secret. Ilara Kane was already at work by the time the first rooster crowed from the distant village, her breath visible in the chill as she knelt in the potting shed's gloom. The air inside was thick with the earthy perfume of damp soil and decaying leaves, a sanctuary of sorts amid the manor's watchful eyes. Wooden shelves sagged under the weight of terracotta pots, seed packets yellowed with age, and rusted shears that hung like forgotten talismans. But to Ilara, it was more than a shed. It was a command center, a place where the simple gardener could shed her skin and arm herself with shadows. She worked methodically, her calloused fingers packing root balls of vibrant petunias' deep purple blooms that masked the tiny black orbs nestled in their hearts. Micro cameras, scavenged from a black market drop in London months ago, no larger than lentils. Each one was a marvel of agency cast-offs. Wireless, low-light capable, with a battery life that could outlast a stakeout in Siberian winter. She jury-rigged a booster antenna from a broken radio antenna and coiled copper wire, hidden now in the compost bin outside, where it hummed faintly against Voss's signal jammers. No live feed to the outside world too risky, but they could sync to her burner phone via Bluetooth bursts, short pings disguised as static from the estate's ancient wiring. Observe, she reminded herself, patting soil around the last camera. Don't engage, the mantra from Prague, drilled into her by Jax during endless drills in rain-lashed Berlin alleys. But last night's specter, the hooded figure with his vial and his bratva poise, had cracked that resolve like thin ice. Voss's mockery still burned, a low simmer in her gut. Petal, dirt digger. If the old man wanted weeds pruned, she'd start with the serpent in his garden. By 6, the petunias were transplanted along the east hedge, their cameras angled toward the bootprint's site and the path to the sundial. Ilara stepped back, wiping loam from her brow with the back of her glove, her green eyes scanning for tells. The fog was lifting, revealing the manor's east wing, where Reginald's apartments brooded under slate roofs. No movement yet, but she noted the curtain twitch in a third-floor window. Hargrove, the butler perhaps, or a guard nursing coffee. Paranoia was the estate's lifeblood. Everyone watched everyone. A gravel crunch announced company. Ilara straightened, slipping into her role as she turned to face the newcomer. It was the new handyman, Thomas Black, materializing from the mist like a bad dream revisited. He'd arrived a week prior, credentials as thin as newsprint ex-army, invalided out after an incident in the Falklands. Or so the staff roster claimed. Tall and rangy, with a jaw like an anvil and eyes the color of storm clouds, he carried a toolbox that clanked with deceptive normalcy. His boots size 11, she clocked instantly, were caked in the same mud as last night's print, though scrubbed enough to pass muster. "Morning, miss," he said, his accent a flat Midlands drawl that didn't quite hide the eastern lilt beneath. He set the box down near the shed, pulling out a hammer as if to mend a loose trellis. But his gaze flicked to the fresh petunias, lingering a beat too long. Early riser, eh? Boss likes his blooms tidy? Ilara nodded, keeping her voice light, laced with the fabricated rural burr the agency had coached her on. I can't let the dew settle too long. Ruins the roots. She busied herself with a trowel, angling her body to shield the camera placements. Up close, he smelled of machine oil and Turkish tobacco unfiltered, the kind that left a bitter tang on the tongue. The tattoo she'd glimpsed last night peeked from his cuff, a coiled serpent, scales inked in faded green, the Bratva's mark for enforcer. Prague flashed Jack's pointing out a similar one on a mark's wrist before the world exploded. Black hammered a nail into the trellis with unnecessary force, the wood splintering slightly. Heard the old man's on edge. Guess tomorrow big gala. Reckon that's why you're out here at Sparrow's fart. Sparrow's what? Ilara feigned confusion, a flicker of the simpleton to draw him out. He chuckled, low and without mirth. Crack of dawn, love. Gala means extra eyes. Security's doubling patrols. Best keep your head down. Or yours, she thought, but aloud. Noted. Wouldn't want to trip over any boots in the dark. The words hung, a subtle probe. But Black didn't flinch, just drove another nail, the hammer's ring echoing like a warning bell. He left after 10 minutes, toolbox swinging, his path veering tellingly toward the grotto. Ilara waited until his silhouette blurred into the mist, then slipped after him at a distance, using the apple espaliers as cover. The gardens were waking, birdsong piercing the quiet, dew jewels catching the first slant of sun. But her focus narrowed to Black, his stride too measured, scanning low for tails. At the grotto, a fern-choked alcove with a marble nymph presiding over a stagnant pool, he paused, gloved hand dipping into the water as if testing temperature. Instead, he retrieved a pebble from the muck, palming it smooth before pocketing it and moving on. Dead drop, Ilara catalogued. Counter-surveillance pebble marks a safe retrieval. Her burner buzzed softly in her pocket. First camera sync. Grainy feed showed the hedge empty, but a shadow flitted at the edge Black, circling back. No, a fox, slinking toward the moors. False alarm, but her pulse didn't slow. These gardens weren't just pretty. They were a chessboard. And she was playing blind against a grandmaster. Breakfast in the staff hall was a hurried affair. Porridge congealing in bowls, tea stewed black, the scullery maids gossiping in hushed tones about the old man's cough worsening. Ilara took her tray to a corner table, ears pricked. Hargrove presided at the head, his wiry frame ramrod straight in his morning coat, spectacles perched like a hawk's beak, 70 if a day, with a face mapped by 4 decades of Voss service lines, etched deep from secrets kept, and slight swallowed. He'd nodded to her last night in the pantry, a flicker of something unspoken. Ally or informant? As she spooned oatmeal, a shadow fell over her table. Miss Kane, a moment. Reginald Voss loomed, his bulk filling the doorway, a half-smoked cigarette dangling from his lips despite the no-smoking edict. His eyes were bloodshot, suit rumpled from a late-night poker in the village, or something shadier, like the notes she'd seen him pass to Hale's driver. He gestured to the door, expectant. Ilara rose, tray abandoned, following him into the corridor where morning light slanted through leaded panes. The hall smelled of beeswax polish and faded roses, portraits of stern Voss ancestors glaring down like judges. Father's in a strop about the East Garden, Reginald said without preamble, exhaling smoke that curled toward the ceiling. Says it's overgrown like a bloody jungle. Sort it before luncheon, or he'll have your hide. And mine, for hiring you. She nodded, demure. I'll see to it, sir. Thorns can be stubborn. His laugh was bitter, ash flicking to the floor. Stubborn? That's the family motto. Look, Pedalalera, is it? Just keep it neat. Galas tomorrow. Hale and his lot will be sniffing around like hounds. Father's health. He trailed off, glancing away, the cigarette trembling slightly. Cancer, the whispers said, stage 4, liver, eating him from within. Reginald knew, of course he did. Heir's burden or opportunity? Understood, she murmured, but her recon brain filed it. Vulnerability, motive. If Voss fell, Reginald inherited the empire and its enemies. He stubbed the fag on a priceless side table, leaving a scorch mark like a brand. Good, and eyes open. Odd sorts about lately. His gaze bored into her, searching for cracks. Did he suspect? Or was it projection, the sun's own schemes bubbling up? As he strode away, Elara exhaled, the corridor's chill raising goose flesh. Luncheon loomed intimate, with Hale as guest. High stakes for probes. She headed to the east garden, shears in hand, but detoured to the hedge. The cameras were live now. Feed 1 showed the boot print undisturbed, feed 2 capturing a rabbit nibbling petals. No black, yet. The pruning was brutal work, thorns raking her arms like accusations. The sun climbing to bake the earth. Sweat beaded under her shirt, but she pushed on, clipping the wilder growth while her mind mapped contingencies. Escape routes if Black cornered her. Improvised weapons from the trellis's wire. By 10, the path gleamed, espaliers aligned like soldiers. But as she gathered clippings, something glinted in the mulch, a cigarette butt, half buried, the paper-stained yellow from Turkish unfiltered. Fresh, rain-sheltered. Black's brand. She pocketed it discreetly. DNA goldmine if she could process it. Agency labs were a dream away. But her burner had a basic spectrometer app crude, but it could flag anomalies against known profiles. Later, luncheon assembled on the terrace overlooking the tamed East Garden, a tableau of forced civility under striped awnings. Voss held court at a wrought iron table laden with chilled gazpacho tomato red and deceptive, flanked by Reginald and Hale. Lady Ashford was absent, indisposed, but her absence hung like perfume. Elara served, apron starched, circulating with pitchers of Sancerre that caught the light like liquid diamonds. Voss barely glanced her way as she poured, his focus on Hale. Edmund, that merger. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Your numbers don't add up. Hale spooned soup, his granite face impassive. Harlan, paranoia ages you. Sign the papers, we'll both profit. Reginald interjected, voice oily. Father's right to caution. Times are turbulent. Elara refilled Voss's glass, close enough to catch the undercurrent. Hale's hand sliding a folded vellum note under the tablecloth toward Reginald, embossed with Hale's crest, a lion rampant. Bribe, cipher. She memorized the seal's flourish, retreating a step. Then Voss's hand clamped her wrist, vice tight, veins bulging like exposed roots. Clumsy ox, he snarled, wine sloshing perilously close to the rim. Spilled a drop last night, nearly ruined Beatrice's gown. What does a simpleton like you know of finesse? Back to the dirt with you, before you uproot the whole damn estate. The table froze. Hale's spoon paused midair, amusement flickering. Reginald shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. Complicit silence. Ilara's arm throbbed under the grip. Jax's voice echoing. Breathe through it, Elle. They break what they can't control. She met Voss's eyes, unflinching for a fractured second green fire against ice, then dropped her gaze, voice steady. Forgive me, my lord. It won't happen again. He released her with a shove, laughing as if it had been a jest. See that it doesn't, or find yourself replanted in the village poorhouse, digging latrines for a pittance. Humiliation coiled hot in her belly, but she channeled it, gliding away with the empty pitcher. In the kitchen's shadow, she leaned against cool stone, breath ragged. Simpleton. The word was a match to dry tinder. Prague had been full of men like Voss overlords blind to the blades at their feet. Jax had died because one such underestimated her cover. Not again. Afternoon dissolved into a haze of labor, weeding the rose arbor, where thorns drew blood like offerings, then a sweep of the grotto. The nymph's marble eyes seemed to follow her as she probed the pool's edge with a stick. Pebbles shifted, but no drops. Black's retrieval? Or waiting? Her phone pinged. Camera 3, the sundial. Empty, but a fresh scuff on the brass recent. Dusk fell early, the sun bleeding orange into the hills. Ilara couldn't shake the note's image. It nagged like an unsolved cipher. Slipping into the stables under cover of gathering tools, she accessed the Manor's Wi-Fi via a backdoor exploit crude VPN from her burner, masked as a smart bulb's chatter. Voss's network was a fortress, but forts had mice holes. Staff logs first. Black's hire date aligned with Hale's last visit. Coincidence? Then emails Reginald's account, lightly encrypted. There, a thread with ehaleindustrix.co.uk. Package en route, discretion paramount, RR. Her blood chilled. Complicit. Son selling out father? Or Hale baiting a trap Voss had set first? Rain returned as night deepened. A relentless patter that turned paths to slurry. Ilara donned her slicker, hood up, and ventured out, tailing Black's likely haunt. The cameras fed scraps. A shadow near the hedge at 7, gone by 7:05. She followed the boot trail, mud sucking at her soles, toward the stables. Room 4, his quarters, light seeping under the door. Bump key from her go-bag agency standard. Filed from a credit card slid the lock with a whisper. Inside, the room reeked of sweat and solvent. Narrow bed unmade, duffel half-zipped, a single bulb casting long shadows. Ilara moved like smoke. Flashlight beam dancing, dresser drawers socks, a false passport. Thomas Black, born Minsk, 1987. Folded neatly. Under the mattress, suppressed Beretta, 9mm serial ghosted with acid. Cold steel in her palm. Weight familiar Jax's sidearm once. False bottom of the duffel yielded treasure. Manor's blueprints. Photocopied and annotated red X's on Voss's bedroom. The wine cellar. The gala tent site. Tunnels marked in blue. Ingress from the moors. And the vial duplicate, crystal vial of crystalline powder. Stoppered tight. Thallium. Her nose told her odorless. The poisoner's poison, mimicking flu before the organs liquefied. Bratva signature, slow, deniable. Footsteps outside heavy, deliberate. Ilara dove under the bed, dust motes choking her as the door creaked. Black entered, dripping, muttering curses in Russian-laced English. Chert was me, this mud, wipes the tracks clean, good, bad. He shrugged off his jacket, the serpent tattoo flexing as he stretched. Close now. Boots inches from her face, same tread, mud-flecked. He rummaged the dresser, pulling socks, oblivious. Then his phone buzzed harsh, insistent. Target confirmed. Thallium in the Armagnac Gala toast, clean hit. Extraction post on, no witnesses. Pause. Listener murmuring. Hale's coin's good. Voss crossed him once too often. Out. He holstered the phone, grabbed the Beretta Ilara's breath stilled as his hand brushed the mattress, and left, locking up with a key that jangled like chains. She waited an eternity, 5 minutes, 10, then slithered out, heart slamming. Beretta back in place, vial resealed. She transcribed the call verbatim on her burner, encrypting it triple fold. Agency drop protocol. Observe, report. But this, Hale's merger grudge, Reginald's notes, Black's Bratva ink, it wove a noose around Voss's neck. And she, the gardener, held the shears. Rain lashed harder as she bolted for her loft. Slicker plastered, mind a whirlwind. Flashback hit like lightning. Prague, downpour mirroring this. Jackson her in a canal-side cafe, vial of intel in his pocket. Serpents close, L. Smell him? She'd laughed then, teasing his paranoia. Hours later, the safe house erupted Bratva with thallium-dusted needles, Jax convulsing as she fought free, dragging him into the night. Roots run deep, he'd gasped, blood bubbling. She'd buried him in an unmarked plot outside the city. Roots, indeed. No, not again. Voss was a monster, but monsters deserve their monsters, and she deserved more than dirt. In her loft, door barricaded, Alara synced the vial photo to her drive thallium confirmed via app spectral match. 94. Plan coalesced. Ally with Hargrove for tunnel access. Rig traps in the ivy tripwires to flashbangs from estate fireworks. Non-lethal. Deniable. Disrupt the drop. Expose the snake. But as thunder rolled, her burner pinged unbidden. Camera 4. The grotto. Feed bloomed black, kneeling by the pool, palming another pebble. Then, turning straight toward the lens, eyes narrowing as if sensing the eye in the flower. Cliffhanger close, he reached out, plucking a petunia camera and all. The petunia came away in Black's fist with a soft rip, soil crumbling from its roots like a confession torn from reluctant earth. Alara watched the feed on her burner phone, frozen in the loft's dim confines, the rain's tattoo against the window pane sinking with the frantic thud of her heart. The camera's lens, tiny, black, innocuous, stared up at him from the dirt-smeared bloom, its unblinking eye capturing the assassin's face in merciless clarity for the first time. Broad cheekbones shadowed by stubble, a scar bisecting his left eyebrow like a lightning bolt, eyes narrowing to slits of gunmetal gray. He held the flower up to the grotto's faint moonlight, turning it slowly, his breath fogging the screen in a ghostly plume. Shit, Alara thought, her thumb hovering over the kill switch. One tap, and the device would fry itself in a microsecond burst, rendering it inert scrap. But too late the feed glitched as his fingers probed the stem, pinching the hidden node. A faint click echoed through the audio pickup, and the screen went black, the last frame searing into her mind. Black's lips curling in a predator's smile, the serpent tattoo on his forearm twisting like a living thing as he crushed the petunia underfoot. She exhaled sharply, the loft's stale air tasting of hay and regret. Discovery. Not total, the other cameras were deeper embedded. Angles varied, but enough to spook him. Black would sweep now, methodical, rooting out more eyes in the garden. And her? The simple gardener, who just happened to plant surveillance in his path. Coincidence wouldn't hold. Pros like him smelled setups like blood in the water. Alara pocketed the burner, its warmth seeping through her tack pants like a guilty secret. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the night felt heavier, the stables below creaking under the wind's insistent whispers. She couldn't stay holed up. Action was the antidote to paralysis. Hargrove the butler's name surfaced like a lifeline, his nod in the pantry, the flicker in his eyes during staff briefings. 40 years under Voss's boot. Loyalty had limits. Grudges festered like untended wounds. If anyone knew the estate's veins, the tunnels, the blind spots, it was him. She laced her boots tighter, shrugging into the slicker once more, its hood casting her face in shadow. The go-bag stayed behind, too bulky for stealth. Instead, she palmed a gardener's multi-tool secateurs that doubled as a garrote, trowel sharp enough to gut a fish. Down the ladder, silent as sin, she melted into the night, the manor's bulk a hulking silhouette against the storm-scoured sky. The staff hall's back door was a wrist guards patrolled the perimeter, but the kitchen's herb garden offered cover. Rosemary and thyme brushing her legs like conspirators. The hall was dark, save for the ember glow of Hargrove's office lamp bleeding under his door. Alara pressed her ear to the wood, listening. The scratch of a pen, the rustle of paper, a sigh heavy with the weight of decades. No guards. The butler's quarters were sacrosanct, even in Voss's panopticon. She knocked softly 3 raps, Morse for urgent, and the scratching ceased. "Who's there?" Hargrove's voice, reedy but edged with steel. "Elara, from the gardens. We need to talk. Now." A pause, long enough for doubt to creep in. Then the lock turned with a brass snick, the door cracking to reveal his gaunt face, spectacles askew, tie loosened like a noose half slipped. He peered past her into the gloom, then jerked his head. "In, quick." The office was a time capsule. Oak desks scarred by ink pots, shelves groaning with ledgers from Voss's early days, a single window barred like a confessional. Hargrove shut the door, bolting it with hands that trembled not from age, but adrenaline. He was 68, Elara recalled from staff files wire thin, with a hawkish nose and hair the color of ash. But his eyes, behind the wire rims, burned with a clarity that belied the lines etching his brow. "You're the girl Voss mocks," he said, not a question, sinking into his creaking chair. "The one who watches—" "What devilment brings you here at this hour?" She didn't sit too exposed. Instead, she leaned against the desk, pulling the burner from her pocket and thumbing it alive. The dead feed from the petunia lingered on screen, Black's crushed smile frozen. "This devilment, Handyman Black. He's not mending fences, he's planting death. Thallium in the Armagnac for tomorrow's gala. Hired by Hale, maybe Reginald too. Bratvatais." Hargrove's face drained of color, spectacles slipping down his nose. He pushed them up with a finger that whitened at the knuckle. "Thallium. Christ. Voss's favorite poison, used it on that Belgian rival in '09, or so the rumors ran. Slow, leaves no trace but the agony." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a hiss. "And you know this how? You're a gardener, lass. Simple, he calls you." The barb stung, but Elara met it with a level stare, pulling up the audio clip from Black's room, the call transcribed, time-stamped. Simple enough to listen. I was in his quarters. Blueprints, gun, the works. He's sweeping the gardens now, found one of my watchers. She hesitated, the agency's veil thin. "I'm not what I seem, Mr. Hargrove. But Voss's enemies aren't mine. Help me stop this, or we're all weeds in his plot." He studied her, the silence stretching taut as a bowstring. Rain pattered the window like impatient fingers. Finally, he rose, crossing to a locked cabinet that blended seamlessly with the bookshelves. A key from his watch chain antique, floral etched, turned the tumblers. Inside, not ledgers, but a steel box, rusted at the edges. He lifted the lid with reverence, revealing yellowed blueprints, Voss Manor's underbelly. Tunnels inked in faded blue, smuggler's roots from the 18th century, overlaid with modern notes in Hargrove's precise hand. 42 years, he murmured, unrolling a sheet across the desk. Started as a boot boy, watched Voss Sr. bury bodies in those moors. Harlan's worst cancer's gnawing him, but the venom's deeper. Reginald knows. Hale's whispers turned his ear months back. The merger's a noose Voss pulls, Hale tightens. His finger traced a vein under the cellars. Black's path enters from the grotto grate, tunnels to the wine vault. Armagnac stored there Voss's toast tradition. Elara bent over the map, committing it to memory exits at the sundial, a choke point under the rose arbor. Traps? I can rig the ivy tripwires to flares, non-lethal. Hargrove's laugh was a dry rasp. Flares? Lass, you're no greenhorn. Agency, isn't it? Seen that look, Prague eyes. He caught her flinch, waving it off. No names, but yes, traps. Fireworks cache in the potting shed, Voss's July folly. Wire 'em to the tunnel mouth. I'll distract the patrols at midnight. Say it's a leak in the east wing. Alliance forged in whispers. Elara nodded, folding the blueprint's corner for a hasty copy mental, but she'd sketch it later. Why? Voss treats you like furniture. His eyes shadowed, distant. Because endings matter. Voss gave me this post after the war saved me from the dole. But he broke my boy Reginald's doing. Drunk driving, covered up. Lad was 16. No justice, just hush money. He closed the box with a finality that echoed, "This, a clean cut, for the boy." Gratitude welled, unbidden rare in her line, where trust was a luxury tax. Midnight then, sundial, go, and last roots or not, watch your back. Black's not alone. Shadows have shadows. She slipped out as the clock struck 11, the hall's chill chasing her into the drizzle. The gardens were a silvered labyrinth under the moon's reluctant gaze, puddles mirroring the clouds like fractured skies. Alara moved low, skirting the east hedge where her remaining cameras blinked silent sentinels. Feed 2, empty. Feed 1, a flicker. Black, rake in hand, combing the soil like a miner sifting for gold. He paused at the bootprint's site, crouching, then straightened with a curse that carried on the wind. The rake came down hard, turning earth-erasing evidence. Or, hunting more. She veered toward the potting shed, heart a muffled drum. The door creaked on oiled hinges, her own lube job, and inside, the air wrapped her in loam and latent violence. Fireworks crate in the corner, Roman candles, fountains, sparklers Voss had imported for a display that fizzled in 23 rain. She selected 3 flashbangs in embryo, wiring them with gardener's twine and battery packs from her kit. Crude but effective. Trip the line, spark flies, blind the snake for seconds that could save lives. As she worked, Prague clawed back a flashback unbidden, rain-lashed streets blurring with this night's drizzle. Jax and her, holed in a pension off the Vltava, blueprints spread like these, plotting the Bratva drop. "Eyes everywhere, L," he'd said, his freckles stark under the bare bulb, green eyes mirroring hers. But we're the ghosts. Laughter then, his hand on her knee, warm anchor. The vial that night, not thallium, but Semtex intel had drawn the wolves. Gunfire through the door, Jax shoving her under the bed as rounds chewed the frame. "Run!" he'd roared, returning fire till his clip clicked empty. She'd crawled out to him, slumped, serpent-tattooed hand on his throat, blood bubbling. "Roots, deep," he'd whispered, gone before the extraction team breached. Ilara blinked it away, the shed's shadows sharpening. No ghost tonight. She shouldered the rigged bundle light, lethal and ghosted to the sundial. The brass gnomon loomed, time's frozen finger accusing the witching hour. The tunnel grate was nearby, ivy veiled under the arbor, its bars rusted but solid. She knelt, probing with the trowel loose soil, recent disturbance. Black's ingress, twine stretched taut across the mouth, flares daisy-chained, battery primed. Pull the pin at midnight, and hell's own strobe would light the way. Wind whispered through the yews, carrying voices distant, male, patrols. Ilara melted into the undergrowth, thorns needling her slicker. Breath held as 2 guards trudged past, lanterns swinging like pendulums. "Old man's ranting again. Hail's the devil," he says. Laughter, coarse. "Reckon Reginald's the pitchfork." They passed, oblivious. Ilara exhaled, checking her watch 11:47. Hargrove's distraction. A leak in the east wing pipes flooding the service corridor. She'd hear the shouts soon, but the wind carried more a soft scuff, deliberate from the grotto's direction. Black? She peered through the foliage, the arbor's roses dripping petals like blood. A figure detached from the shadows, not black, slighter, hooded. Reginald? The air's build matched, his usual swagger muted to stealth. He paused at the sundial, hand dipping to the base same hollow Black had used. Retrieving, planting. Ilara's multi-tool slipped into her palm, blade flicking open silent. She crept closer, brambles parting like reluctant allies, close enough to hear his mutter. "Bastard's time's up. Hale's word." He palmed a small envelope wax-sealed, Hale's lion crest tucking it into the stone's crevice. Then, glancing over his shoulder, he straightened, vanishing toward the manor. Complicit, confirmed. Not just whispers, active sabotage. The envelope orders? Payment? Her recon itch screamed to snatch it, but time pressed. Midnight tolled from the grandfather clock in the hall, a bronze boom that vibrated the ground. Shouts erupted East Hargrove's ploy. Flood! Shut the valves! Guards scrambled, boots pounding gravel. Now. Alara lunged for the grate, trowel prying the ivy aside. The envelope first snatched, pocketed, its wax warm as fresh sin. Then the pin, pulled with a soft click, the twine humming taut. Any ingress now triggered the blaze. She backed away, resetting the undergrowth, when a new sound footfalls, heavy, from the moor's edge. Black. Rucksack slung, rake abandoned. He approached the grate with purpose, hood low. Ilara held, statue still in the arbor's embrace, thorns drawing beads of blood from her cheek. He knelt, tool out Gerber again, prying the bars. The grate yielded with a groan, and he slipped feet first into the maw, boots vanishing into black. Seconds. She counted 5, 10, then the trip. Faint snap, muffled, then boom. Flares ignited in chain reaction, white-hot magnesium fury erupting from the tunnel mouth. Light seared the night, painting the gardens in stark relief roses like flames. The sundial, a skeletal sentinel. Shouts from the manor, guards converging, but the tunnel's roar drowned them. Black's bellow echoing up like a wounded beast. Alara bolted, circling wide toward the stables, the envelope burning in her pocket. Flashbang's work blinded, disoriented, but alive. He'd surface furious, hunting. Her loft beckoned, but a diversion first, the compost heap where her booster hid. She yanked it, scattering wires into the muck-dead cams now, no trace back to her. Inside, barricade set, she slit the envelope with the trowel. Vellum inside typed, "Our package secured. Thallium load confirmed. Toast at 2100. Extraction via Moors, 2300. Loose ends, the girl. E.H., the girl, her. Chill spidered her spine. Reginald's mark, Hale's blade. Voss oblivious, cancer gnawing. Gala tomorrow a stage for regicide. And her. The weed they meant to uproot. But weeds were resilient. Alara encrypted the note's photo, sketching the tunnel map from memory. Hargrove's alliance held. Midnight's flare proved it. Guards swarmed the grate. Black's curses fading as they dragged him, zip-tied and spitting into the light. She'd glimpsed it from the loft window. His face twisted, serpent ink stark under the lanterns. Captured, but the plot's roots delved deeper. Reginald loose, Hale inbound. Dawn would bring questions, Voss's inquisition. But she'd play simple, eyes down, hands dirty. Inside, the shears sharpened. Flashback tugged again Prague's aftermath, her extraction debrief, handler's voice cold. One loose end, Kane, tie it. Jax's ghost had been that end, buried but not severed. Now, in Voss's garden, ends multiplied. Black's interrogation, Reginald's slip, Hale's arrival. She lay back on the cot, burner clutched like a talisman, wind whispering promises through the casement. The gala loomed, a whirlwind of silk and steel. Thallium thwarted, but poisons came in many forms. Ambition's bite, betrayal's sting. Sleep claimed her in fragments, dreams of roots entwining serpents, thorns drawing first blood. Outside the manor stirred, unaware its gardener held the blade. The first light of dawn sliced through the casement window of Alara's loft like a scalpel, carving harsh lines across the scarred desk where the envelope lay dissected. She hadn't slept not truly after the night's frenzy. Her body coiled tight as a tripwire, ears straining for the inevitable bootfalls on the gravel below. The gala was hours away, but Voss Manor already thrummed with the agitated buzz of a hornet's nest kicked, guards barking orders in the courtyard, Hargrove's measured tones corralling the staff, the distant wail of sirens from the village constabulary. Black was in custody, dragged from the tunnel mouth, spitting curses and blood, his serpent tattoo stark under the lantern's glare, but capture was a double-edged blade. It bought time, but it spilled secrets like overripe fruit. Ilara rose from the cot, muscles protesting the night's contortions, and splashed cold water from the basin onto her face. The mirror above it, a cracked relic from some long-gone stable hand, reflected a woman etched with fatigue. Dark circles bruising her eyes, a fresh scratch from the thorns raking her cheek like a lover's grudge. She traced it with a fingertip, the sting a reminder. Visible wounds heal, the hidden ones fester. The envelope's contents burned in her mind. Loose ends, the girl. Reginald's script? No, typed, but Hale's seal screamed complicity. And now, with Black caged in the Manor's sub-basement guest quarters, a euphemism for the wine cellar's fortified annex questions would flower like nightshade. She dressed quickly, fresh overalls over tack layers, hair rebound in its practical braid, the multi-tool tucked into her boot like a promise. The burner phone went into her apron pocket, its screen dark, but alive with encrypted ghosts, the audio clips, blueprint sketches, spectral matches on the thallium. Down the ladder, she emerged into the courtyard where chaos reigned in orderly fashion. Maids fluttered like startled pigeons, hauling linens for the gala. Gardeners real ones. Village hires, like her cover, hauled in floral arches under Hargrove's hawkish eye. He caught her gaze across the yard, a subtle nod. Blueprints secure. Black singing to the law, but not to Voss yet. Ilara busied herself with the herb beds near the kitchens, clipping rosemary with shears that clicked like castanets. The air was crisp, laced with the brine of impending rain, and the moors beyond the estate wall rolled gray and indifferent. But indifference was a luxury. Her recon radar pinged constant, a guard triple-checking the east gate, whispers among the footmen about the handyman's blade, Lady Ashford's arrival early, her limousine purring up the drive with trunks that clanked suspiciously. "Kane! Over here!" Voss's bellow cut through the din, a thunderclap from the terrace where he held impromptu court. Ilara straightened, wiping soil from her hands on her thighs, and approached with measured steps. The old man stood at the balustrade, cane in one gnarled fist, ebony with a silver wolf's head, new since her arrival, his face a mask of fury etched deeper by the cancer's cruel hand. Reginald flanked him, pale and rumpled, nursing a coffee that steamed like his temper. Hale was absent, but his shadow loomed in the constable's radio chatter filtering from the courtyard. "My lord," Ilara murmured, dipping her head as she mounted the steps. Up close, Voss reeked of stale cigars and medicinal tang morphine patches under his shirt, she wagered, for the pain he denied. He jabbed the cane toward the east garden, where scorch marks from the flares blackened the ivy like accusations. What in the devil's name happened out there last night? Guards yapping about fireworks and a tunnel rat. You tend those weeds, did you see anything? Hear anything? The question was a snare, baited with his trademark scorn. Ilara felt Reginald's eyes on her. Sharp as flints the girl, the note had called her. Loose end. She kept her gaze on the ground, tracing a crack in the flagstone, voice pitched humble. "Nothing but the storm, my lord. Wind knocked a trellis, thought it was thunder. Woke me, but by the time I looked—" She trailed off, shrugging with the artless grace of the overlooked. Voss's cane tapped the stone, impatient. "Storm, eh? While my estate crawls with vermin." He leaned closer, breath hot and ragged. "Simple girl like you wouldn't know a threat if it bloomed in your bed, would you? But mark me gala tonight, eyes everywhere. One more thunder and you're out on your ear, roots and all." Reginald interjected, voice smooth as oiled silk but laced with edge. "Father, the police have the intruder. Some drifter, they say. Let the lass work. Flowers won't prune themselves." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Fixed on Alara with that probing intensity, did he suspect her in the shadows last night? The envelope's retrieval? Voss harumphed, waving her off. Work then, but if I catch you idling. The threat hung, incomplete but vivid. Alara retreated down the steps, heart steady but mind racing. Drifter. Hargrove's ploy held. Black's brought ties buried under a fabricated backstory. But Reginald's deflection, protective or covering tracks. The morning blurred into a frenzy of preparation. Alara conscripted to the ballroom, arranging centerpieces of white lilies and crimson amaryllis that dripped from crystal vases like arterial spray. The room was a cavern of guilt and gloom, frescoed ceilings depicting Voss ancestors in triumphant poses, chandeliers swathed in dust sheets now peeled away to sparkle like captive stars. Guest names scrolled on a side table. 80 souls, power-distilled MPs with dossiers of dirt, CEOs with offshore vaults, Ashford's cabal of social vipers. Hale topped the list, of course, his place card embossed in gold. As she worked, snatches of conversation drifted from the adjoining drawing room. Voss berating a guard captain over lax protocols. Reginald on the phone in low tones. Yes, contained. The package, delayed, but viable. Package, thallium, or the merger's poison pill? Alara's shears paused mid-snip, a lily head tumbling to the floor like a guillotined noble. Hargrove materialized at her elbow, silver tray in hand, bearing a pot of Earl Grey. Steady, lass, he murmured, pouring a cup she hadn't asked for. Black's lawyered up some ghost from London, paid in crypto, won't crack till noon, tunnel's sealed, I've the key. He slipped it into her palm under the saucer brass, etched with the wolf's head. Midday wine vault, check the Armagnac yourself, and the envelope? She nodded, sipping the tea bitter, bracing. Hale's mark on Reginald. Loose ends, the girl. Meant for Black, but now... His eyes shadowed. Reginald's always been the sharper thorn. Lost his mother, young Voss's affairs broke her. Boy's hunger runs cold. Watch him at luncheon. Hale arrives then. Alliance deepened in sips and whispers. Alara pocketed the key, resuming her clippings. But as Hargrove glided away, a prickle at her nape eyes on her. She glanced up. Reginald in the doorway, arms crossed, that fox's gaze dissecting her from afar. He turned away, but not before she caught the twitch of his lips, a smile? Or a snarl? Midday brought the intimate luncheon on the terrace, a powder keg wrapped in damask. Voss at the head, cane propped like a scepter. Reginald to his right, fidgeting with a napkin ring. Hale arriving fashionably late, his Bentley crunching gravel like bones. No Lady Ashford, indisposed with a migraine, Hargrove had murmured, but Alara smelled cover, the socialite's web of spies, perhaps eavesdropping from her suite upstairs. Alara served gazpacho again, chilled and innocent, her apron a shield. Hale's entrance was theatrical, broad shoulders filling the French doors, a bear in bespoke tweed, his granite face cracking into a grin that fooled no one. Harlan, you old fox still standing? Thought the merger talks would bury you. Voss's laugh was a bark, devoid of mirth. Takes more than paper cuts, Edmund. Sit, eat. We've vermin to discuss. Hale settled, eyes flicking to Reginald a nod, almost imperceptible before settling on the menu. Alara poured the Sancerre, close enough to catch the scents. Hale's bay rum cologne masking something acrid, like almond cyanide. No, just aftershave. But his cufflinks glinted lion rampant, matching the envelope's seal. Conversations simmered, merger clauses dissected like cadavers, veiled threats traded over oysters. Your steel quotas are choking us, Hale rumbled, spooning soup. Ease up, or the board walks. Voss leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Walk? I'd drag you back by your wallet. But last night's drifter, odd timing care to illuminate? Hale's spoon paused, then resumed. Coincidence, Harlan. World's full of desperate men. His gaze slid to Alara as she refilled, lingering, assessing. Though some desperation's closer to home. Your staff, for instance. The gardener quaint touch. Does she double as lookout? Voss waved dismissively. Petal prunes weeds, nothing more. Unlike some sons who prune alliances. The barb landed on Reginald, who flushed, fingers tightening on his glass. Alara retreated a step, but Hale's voice pursued. Weeds can strangle oaks, Harlan. Best uproot early. The words hung, dual-edged merger metaphor or something sharper. She felt Reginald stare again, hot on her back as she escaped to the kitchen. There, amid the clatter of prep for the gala roast pheasant trust, sauces reducing Hargrove cornered her by the pantry. Armagnac's next. Key works the vault lock. Sample it. Thallium's tasteless, but residue might show under UV from your kit. She nodded, slipping out the service door toward the cellars. The Manoress underbelly was a warren, stone steps spiraling down, air turning clammy as a crypt. Torch sconces flickered LED upgrades, Voss's paranoia casting her shadow long and accusatory. The wine vault branched off the main tunnel, a iron-bound door etched with the wolf. The key turned smooth, Hargrove's maintenance evident, and the door groaned open to racks of vintages slumbering in dust-shrouded splendor. The Armagnac occupied a pedestal case, vintage 1920, amber nectar and crystal decanters, enough for the toast to drown a regiment. Alara uncorked one, sniffing. Vanilla oak, no off notes. But the spectral app on her burner UV mode revealed faint crystals winking at the bottle's neck, like frost on a grave. Thallium, Black's work or Reginald's slight before the drop. She swabbed a sample onto a test strip from her go-bag positive, the strip blooming purple as betrayal. Capped and pocketed, she resealed the decanter, mind-whirling contingencies. Swap the bottle, alert Voss anonymously. But footsteps echoed from the stairs, heavy, deliberate. Alara doused her light, ducking behind a rack as the vault door creaked wider. Reginald entered, alone, his silhouette bulky in the gloom. He moved to the pedestal, gloved hands leather, supple uncorking the decanter with practiced ease. A small pouch from his pocket, more crystals, glittering. Double dose or insurance, post-Black's failure. He poured a measure into a snifter, swirling it testing, then voice low to the shadows. It's done. Hale's man confirmed the load. Voss drinks at 9. By 10, he's convulsing. Extraction set. A pause, then static crackle earpiece. Good. The girl? Reginald's laugh was a wet rasp. Watched her all morning. Simple as soil. But if she saw... He trailed off, sipping the Armagnac grimace, then swallow. Loose end ties itself tonight. Over. Alara's blood iced. He knows, or suspects. The earpiece clicked off. He recorked, pocketing the pouch, and exited, the door thudding shut. She waited heartbeats 10, 20, then emerged, the vault's chill mirroring her resolve. The sample burned in her pocket. Proof, but volatile. Agency protocol, extract, report. But extraction meant leaving Voss to the wolves' cancer and conspiracy. No, Jax's ghost wouldn't allow it. Roots deep, L. She'd cut them. Afternoon waned into gala frenzy. Ballroom aglow with 1,000 candles. Orchestra tuning strings like nerves. Alara circulated in livery, now borrowed footman's jacket over her overalls. Tray of hors d'oeuvres a prop for proximity. Guests arrived in waves, silks rustling, jewels flashing, the air thick with perfume and ambition. Ashford swept in, migraine forgotten, her emeralds a noose around her throat. MPs with briefcases chained like manacles. CEOs orbiting Voss like moons to a dying sun. Hale held court near the terrace doors. Reginald at his elbow whispers, glances toward Alara as she passed with caviar blinnies. Voss, resplendent in black tie despite his pallor. toasted arrivals with ginger ale disguised as scotch, his dagger lapel pin winking like a threat. By 8, the room pulsed waltzes weaving through laughter, shadows lengthening as dusk bled into night. Ilara's tray emptied near the French doors, fog pressing against the panes like a voyeur. She slipped out toward the cellar's final check, but the terrace path was blocked. Reginald, alone, lighting a cigarette, the flame illuminating his face haggard, eyes hollow. "Evening petal," he drawled, exhaling smoke that curled like a noose. "Fancy a word?" Ilara paused, tray balanced, heart a trip hammer. "Sir?" "The guests." He stepped closer, blocking the path, the cigarette's ember a baleful eye. "Guests can wait. You, though. You've been busy, pruning more than flowers, eh?" His free hand dipped into his pocket. Not gun, but the pouch. Crystals glinting. "Found black stash, and your little traps. Clever girl." Deny. Feign. Her mind raced protocols disarm. Distract. "I don't know what—" He lunged. Pouch discarded, hand clamping her wrist, the tray clattering to stone. Canapes scattering like confetti at a funeral. "Don't. I saw you last night. Sundial. The envelope." His breath was scotch sour, eyes wild. Hale's plan was clean. Voss gone, merger mine. But you, loose end. Ilara twisted, agency reflexes blooming. Elbow to solar plexus, knee driving up. He gasped, grip loosening, but retaliated fist, glancing her jaw, stars exploding. They grappled, tumbling against the balustrade, fog swallowing their grunts. His weight pinned her, fingers clawing for her throat, the girl, incarnate. She bucked, multi-tool flashing from her boot blade kissing his cheek, a shallow red line blooming. "Back off, Reginald, or I scream." He reared, blood welling, laugh manic. "Scream? And say what, that the gardener's a spy?" He lunged again, but footsteps crunched guards drawn by the crash. Ilara shoved free, tray forgotten, bolting into the fog toward the gardens. Behind shouts, "Mr. Voss, halt!" But Reginald's voice pursued, ragged. "She's the one! Stop her!" The chase ignited Ilara's boots pounding gravel, fog a blindfold an ally. She veered into the yew maze, thorns snagging her jacket, lungs burning. Guards' lanterns bob behind, beams slicing the mist like searchlights. Gala. She thought Voss toasting soon, Armagnac waiting. If Reginald reached him first? A side path, the grotto. She dove in, ferns cloaking her as the patrol thundered past. Breath ragged, she palmed the burner emergency ping to Hargrove. "R loose, Armagnac tainted, intercept." Then deeper into the thicket, toward the sundial backup vial from Black's cache, her insurance. But the fog parted, and there Hale, broad as a wall, blocking the arbor. "Evening petal, run all you like, roots tangle." Cliffhanger. His hand extended not weapon, but a syringe, glinting with promise. "Thalliums for the old man. For you. Something quicker." The syringe caught the fog-diffused moonlight like a fang bared in the gloom, its plunger depressed just enough for a pearl of clear liquid to bead at the tip. Hale loomed in the arbor's archway, his bulk a monolith against the manor's distant glow, the gala's orchestral strains filtering through the mist like a siren's mocking lullaby. Ilara's back pressed against the rough bark of the rose trellis, thorns pricking through her livery jacket like insistent whispers. Fight, flee, fold. Her multi-tool's blade was still slick with Reginald's blood, clutched low in her fist, but Hale's eyes, cold granite chips, locked on her, with the certainty of a man who'd crush strikes and souls alike. "Quicker's mercy, petal," Hale rumbled, his voice a gravel avalanche, stepping forward with the syringe extended like an olive branch dipped in venom. "Thalliums for the old goat slow roast for his empire. You? Just a prick and the loose end phrase." His free hand flexed, lion cufflink glinting a predator's jewelry. Behind him, the chase's echoes faded. Guards' shouts swallowed by the fog, Reginald's curses trailing toward the terrace. But Hale wasn't pursuit. He was ambush, planted here by the envelope's script, waiting for the weed to tangle in his trap. Alara's mind raced circuits faster than her pulse recon protocols flashing. Assess threat. High, syringe likely neurotoxin, fast acting. Environment. Arbor confines, thorns as allies. Extraction, grotto flank, 20 paces left. Prague echoed, Jax's voice in a rain-slick alley. Options L always 3. 1. Charge, blade to throat. Risky. Hale's build screamed ex-rugby enforcer, not desk jockey. 2. Talk. Stall for Hargrove's ping. But Hale's smile said no mercy for monologues. 3. Improvise the garden's arsenal. She shifted her weight, boot-grinding gravel subtle, drawing his eye down. Mercy. From the man-poisoning deals and kin. Her voice pitched low, laced with the village burr simple girl, buying seconds. The multi-tool's handle warmed in her palm, Secateur's jaws ready to snap. Hale chuckled, a seismic rumble. Kin? Reginald's a pup chasing scraps. Voss took my mills in '98, bankrupt me overnight. This? He waved the syringe. Justice, bottled. Another step. Close now bay rum cologne cloying, masking the chemical bite of the toxin. 10 feet. 8. Alara lunged not at him but the trellis. Her free hand seized a thorny cane, yanking it free in a whip-crack of stems and leaves. The roses exploded in a green lash, barbs raking Hale's face as she swung the makeshift flail. He roared, staggering, syringe arm flailing needle grazing her sleeve, fabric hissing faint as the toxin kissed cotton. Pain bloomed, a cold fire tracing her bicep, but she twisted away, thorns scoring her palms for purchase. You little... Hale charged, bulrush blind, blood sheeting his cheek from the gouges. Alara sidestepped, Prague footwork faint left, pivot right, driving the multi-tool's blade into his thigh mid-stride, just above the knee. Fabric tore, flesh yielded. He bellowed, stumbling into the arbor's embrace. Thorns claimed him cuff, sleeve, lapel snagged, buying her a breath. She bolted left toward the grotto, fog her cloak. Behind, Hale's curses devolved to snarls, thrashing free with a snap of wood. Guards! The bitch in the gardens! But the maze swallowed her, paths twisting like veins under skin her mapped labyrinth, blind to him. Lungs burning, arm numbing from the graze. Toxin? Adrenaline masked it. She vaulted the nymph's pool, water splashing cold judgment. The sundial loomed ahead, brass face fog-silvered. Backup vial black's cash, thallium pure hidden in its base. Insurance or counterpoison? She dropped to knees, prying the stone with blood-slick fingers. It shifted, hollow yielding the glass tube cool, lethal. Pocketed, she scanned. Lanterns bobbed distant, converging on the arbor. Hale's bellows rallied them. Time hemorrhaged. Deeper into the thicket, yew hedges parting like reluctant sentinels, she circled back toward the manor's flank. Gala lights a beacon through the veil. Her burner vibrated. Hargrove. Armagnac swapped clean decanter. R detained. Claims intruder in livery. Hold position? No. Position was poison. She needed Voss, the toast, exposure. The terrace loomed, French doors ajar, waltz spilling out like spilled blood. Alara shed the jacket livery, damning, tossing it into brambles. Emerging in overalls, apron askew. The simple gardener reborn. Guests milled on the periphery, cigars aglow, oblivious to the shadow's skirmish. She slipped through, tray commandeered from an empty side table, empty flutes, prop for camouflage. Inside, the ballroom swirled, silks and tuxedos in candlelit chaos. Ashford's laugh, a crystal shard cutting the strings. Voss held the dais, Kane steadying him, Reginald absent detained, Hargrove's text implied. Hale? Limping in late, bandage hasty on his cheek, spinning a tale of garden mishap to a cluster of MPs. His eyes found hers across the room, promise of pursuit. Ilara circulated, flutes balanced, ears tuned to the undercurrent, whispers of the drifter capture. Voss's health toasted with pitying glances. She neared the dais, heart sinking to the violins now. Intercept the toast. But Ashford intercepted her. Emerald noose glinting as she plucked a glass, eyes sharp behind the migraine facade. Darling petal, the socialite purred, voice honey over arsenic. You've a scratch gardening's perils? Her gaze flicked to Alara's cheek, then the numbed arm, sleeve torn. Recon mirror. Ashford's web gossip mill, but deeper? The trunks clanking on a rival smuggled intel? Or worse. Thorn's kiss, ma'am, Ilara murmured, dipping head. They fight back. Ashford's laugh tinkled, but her fingers lingered on the flute, manicured nail tracing the rim. As do we all. Harlan's roses hide barbs, don't they? Like his son. She leaned in, breath mint-laced. Or his rivals. Watch the toast, dear, some poison the palate. Warning or lure? Alara filed at Ashford's absences, her migraine, and glided on, toward the bar where the Armagnac decanter waited, Hargrove's swap gleaming innocent. 9 o'clock chimed, crystal clear. The orchestra swelled to crescendo, guests converging. Voss ascended a dais step, cane thumping like a gavel, face gaunt but defiant under the chandelier's blaze. Ladies, gentlemen, partners in steel and shadow. Murmurs hushed, glasses raised. To empires enduring, threats uprooted. His eyes swept the room lingering on Hale. A gauntlet in gray, then lifted the decanter himself, pouring the amber stream into his snifter with trembling precision. Alara froze mid-stride. Tray tilting, no Hargrove swapped it. But the old man's hand shook. A drop splashed the linen, and in that glint crystals, residue, her spectral app pocketed too far. Voss swirled, inhaled vanilla oak clean, and raised the glass. Shouts erupted from the doors guards, dragging a bound figure, black, bruised and snarling, Hargrove at the fore with a ledger in hand. My lord, the handyman plots, proofs. Chaos rippled, guests gasping, Ashford's hand flying to her throat. Voss paused, glass midway to lips. What fresh devilry! Hale surged forward, feigning concern. Harlan, wait! But Alara moved instinct, roots uncoiling. Tray abandoned, she lunged through the press, overalls a blur among finery. Don't drink! The cry escaped, raw, unscripted simple gardener, unmasked. The room froze, Voss's eyes locking on her shock, then narrowing. You girl? The glass tilted, liquid sloshing. Guards pivoted, hands to holsters. Hale's face twisted recognition, rage. Alara reached the dais, hand outstretched. Poison thallium from Hale, Reginald. Voss's cane cracked down, not on her, but the snifter glass shattering, amber pooling with crystalline flecks that winked damning under the lights. Gasps swelled to roar. Hale barked, lies the chit's made. But Hargrove thrust the ledger forward, emails printed. Reginald's thread with Hale. Envelope facsimile. Truth, my lord, son's hand, rival's coin, black's the blade. Voss's face drained. Cancer's pallor deepening to ash. He staggered, cane clattering, eyes bulging not toxin, but betrayal's bite. Reginald, my blood? A cough racked him, wet and final. Guards swarmed black, irons clicking. Hale back toward the doors. MPs closing ranks. This farce, I'll sue! Alara stood amid the shards, breath ragged, arms numbness spreading toxin creeping, vision edging black. Voss fixed on her, not fury, but fracture seeing, at last. You knew? How? Roots, she gasped, the word Jax's echo. I see them. Sirens wailed distant village law, Hargrove's tip. Ashford melted into the crowd, emeralds vanishing. Her warning rang true complicit? Or chessmaster? Voss collapsed to one knee, hand clutching chest heart, or horror. Guards rushed him. Ilara swayed, the room tilting. Hale's gaze met hers across the melee syringe, promise unfulfilled, but eyes vowing return. Black lunged in irons, spitting Russian at Hale. Predatel! Traitor! Then darkness claimed her toxin, or toll. As she fell, Voss's voice pierced. Save the girl, she's no simple weed. Fade to black. But not end roots entwined, thorns drawing deeper. The Serpentine Lounge's back room reeked of shattered illusions, jasmine perfume soured by spilled liquor, the acrid tang of nerve agent lingering like a bad aftertaste, and the metallic undercurrent of blood from Hale's nicked arm. Alara Kane stood amid the wreckage, chest heaving, her multi-tools blade dripping crimson onto the Persian rug, as constables swarmed through the velvet-draped door. Flashlights carved the gloom into stark geometries, radios crackling with terse commands. Suspects secured 2 down, 1 in custody. Hale slumped against the splintered bar, his granite face slackened by the toxin's creeping paralysis, eyes rolling back in a mix of fury and fog. Irina Ashford, the serpent in emerald, stirred on the floor, her pearls scattered like fallen stars, wrists zip-tied with the bar's own silk cords. Her laugh bubbled up, weak but venomous as a WPC cuffed her. Ghost, Irina rasped, accent fully Russian now, unmasked as the KGB relic Volkov had named. You prune 1 coil, 10 more strike. Prague was just the seed. Her eyes, coal-smudged and defiant, locked on Alara's, mirroring the alley's rain-slick stare from a year past, when Jax's blood had pooled at her feet. Jasmine then, too, clinging to the betrayal. Alara knelt, close enough to feel the socialite's breath mint over malice, her voice a whip-crack whisper. Seeds rot, Irina. Jax's did, yours will. She palmed the Prague file from the safe's innards, its pages crinkling like dry leaves. Redacted reports. Jax's photo clipped to a payout stub, 2 million euros, wired to a Cayman shell. Loose end, tied with money and lies. The constables hauled Irina up, her gown tearing on the bar's jagged edge. But she twisted for one last barb. Bratva remembers widows. Volkov's message? The serpent rises. The words landed like thorns in fresh soil. But Alara straightened, handing the file to the lead inspector, a grizzled yard man with a mustache like a broom bristle. Evidence: forged will, merger sabotage, Prague ties, Hale's syringe succinylcholine derivative. And the perfume? Marks the mole. Hale's mumble slurred through his fog. Bitch, boss's whore. But the toxin silenced him mid-spit, body going limp as they dragged him out. The lounge's patrons gawked from the main floor, jazz trio frozen mid-note. But Alara slipped through the cordon agency ghost, half invisible even to the law. Her burner buzzed, Hargrove, yard inbound Voss Manor. Volkov transferred to Belmarsh tight-lipped, but Irina's name cracked him. Safe return? She typed back, fingers steady despite the arm's lingering ache. Targets down, loose ends? Watching. Outside, London's night air slapped her diesel fumes and river rot, the Thames a black ribbon under sodium lamps. The Aston waited, armored shell gleaming under a no parking sign, its engine growling to life like a beast roused. 2 hours back to the moors, but the drive stretched eternal, Irina's warning coiling in her gut. Serpent rises, Volkov's ping from the cell backup blade. Bratva didn't forgive, Prague's blood debt demanded repayment. Dawn broke grudging over Voss Manor as Alara crested the final hill, the estate's turrets piercing the mist like accusatory fingers. The courtyard was a siege. Black SUVs ringed the fountains, constables in flak vests milling like ants on a carcass. Hargrove's silhouette a lone sentinel at the grand doors. He waved her through a side gate staff entrance, discreet his face a map of exhaustion, spectacles fogged from the chill. Chief, he greeted, voice low as they ducked into the butler's pantry, the air thick with the scent of cooling scones and cordite residue. Yards torn through Reginald's quarters, laptop fried, Cayman logs spilling. Hale's merger was a Trojan, backdoors in the contracts, Voss Industries gutted overnight. Irina Ashford the architect, her gossip fed the forgeries. Volkov named her Prague handler Bratva's London cell. Alara shed her coat, the borrowed blouse blood-flecked from Hale's arm. And Voss? Hargrove's eyes shadowed. Raging. Study with the lead. Reginald's in the cells below singing now, blaming Hale. But the will forgery's his ink. Voss wants you. Now. She nodded, splashing water on her face from the sink-cold shock. Clarity's kiss. The multi-tool went into her slacks pocket, a talisman against the thorns ahead. Up the service stairs, past maids whispering in alcoves. The gardener's a spy, mark me. To the study's oak portal. Hargrove knocked, announcing her like a herald. Miss Kane, sir. Send her in. Voss's voice frayed but fierce. The room hadn't changed. Desk a battlefield of files and ashtrays, the dagger pin glinting on its blotter like a dormant threat. But Voss had pajamas under a robe, morphine pump humming at his elbow, face a skull wrapped in parchment. Constables flanked him, the broom mustache inspector, a junior with a notepad, both deferential to the tycoon's glare. Alara! Voss gestured to the chair. No Kane today too weak, or Trust's concession. The inspectors nodded her in, retreating to the walls like wallpaper. London. Report. She sat, spine straight, the file from the safe slid across the desk. Prague's ghost made tangible. Hale and Irina Ashford in custody. Safe cracked. Your will forged. Merger rigged. She's the Prague mole sold out my op. Jax's death. Volkov confirmed. Bratva's reach. Voss's fingers drummed the blotter, eyes flicking to the photo Jax, young and freckled, grinning against a Berlin backdrop. Your partner. Christ, Irina, Beatrice to me, tea at the Ritz, whispers of alliances, slept under my roof. His cough rattled, handkerchief blooming red. Reginald knew? The pup. Complicit, Alara said, voice even. The envelope his hand, Hale's seal. Loose end, me, for seeing too much. But roots show, my lord. Your empire's weeds cancer in the boardroom. Betrayal in the blood. The inspector cleared his throat, mustache twitching. Sir, the Yards building case is conspiracy, attempted murder, forgery. Hale's Cayman's frozen. Irina's diplomatic immunity. Waived post-Cold War treaties. Volkov's extradition pending. Voss waved him silent, eyes on Alara, measuring, not mocking. You saved me twice, Garden's gala. Roots, you say. Mine rot from within. He leaned forward, morphine slurring the edges. Stay, chief, as offered. Prune the rest. Fortune's yours, Voss name, if you want. The offer hung, a golden snare. Power, purpose after Prague's void, a garden to till without apology. But Jax's photos stared, roots deep but severed. Monsters deserve reckoning, she'd told Hargrove. Voss was one bones in the moors, rivals ruined. Her agency leash chafed, witness protection was a cage, not a crown. She rose, file reclaimed. Generous, my lord, but gardens teach, some soil's poisoned. Yours needs fresh air. A pause, the room's hush broken by the pump's beep. Anonymous tip to the yard-year-old accidents. Clean the roots or they strangle you. Voss's laugh cracked, genuine grief. Traitorous petal. Go then, but the manor remembers. He slid a check across obscene zeros, unsigned. For the thorns. She pocketed it, turning for the door. The inspector followed, murmuring, Miss Kane's statement later, agency coordination. Ghost, she said, slipping out. Hargrove waited in the hall. Keering extended her quarters, east wing, unused. Burn it, I'm out. His nod was paternal, sad. Wise, cars fueled. Moore's Road agency dropped 2 miles east if you ping. Down to the potting shed, last right. the uprooted rose bush from her first week, thorns bared like accusations. She knelt in the loam, hands deep, fingers tracing roots, replanting with care. Petals fell, blood red, as if Jax watched. Deep, she whispered, patting soil. But free. The aston purred to life, gravel crunching farewell, manor shrinking in the rear view, turrets fading to silhouettes against the rising sun. Burner pinged agency. Extraction green. New cover, Vienna. Loose ends? She typed, tied, serpent pruned. But Arena's laugh echoed, Volkov's warning a shadow. As the moors unrolled, endless heather, a glint in the mirror tail, or paranoia. The road twisted, fog coiling like smoke. Ilara's foot eased the pedal, eyes sharp recon never slept. Gardens ended, but thorns? Eternal. 2 miles east, the drop. Unmarked van, handler's face shadowed. Kane, clean exit? She slid in. Check burned in the ashtray's glow. Clean as roots allow. Vienna waited new soil, new weeds. But in the glove box, the dagger pin Voss's gift, unsigned. A thorn to carry. Fade on the moors, manor a distant thorn bush. Ilara's eyes scan the horizon. Threats grow underfoot. Time to prune. Consciousness returned to Ilara Kane in fragments, like shards of stained glass reassembling under a reluctant sun. First, the scent antiseptic sharp as pine needles, undercut by the faint rot of old stone. Then, the throb. A dull hammer in her temples, her left arm a leaden weight swaddled in bandages that itched like accusations. Voices filtered through the haze, muffled as if underwater. A woman's trill, edged with false concern. A man's growl, Voss's gravel timbre demanding answers. Her eyelids fluttered, the room swimming into focus, a bedchamber high in the manor's west turret, canopy of faded brocade drooping like weary sentinels, walls papered in hunter green that absorbed the morning light slanting through leaded panes. October 10, 2025. The date flickered in her mind, unbidden. From the burner's calendar sync before the gala's chaos. 2 days? The toxin hail's syringe graze had stolen time, but not her edge. She shifted, testing limbs. Legs responsive, arm numb but functional. The IV drip tethered to her wrist, a silver leash delivering saline and antidotes. Agency training kicked in inventory. No restraints, door ajar, window barred but unlocked. Escape viable, but unnecessary. Voss's "Save the Girl" echoed from the blackout, a grudging reprieve. The door creaked wider, admitting Hargrove, his hawkish face etched deeper by fatigue, a tray balanced in his bird-boned hands. Porridge, tea, pills in a china dish opportunist's guise, but his eyes held Alliance's spark. Awake, lass? Good. The doctors cleared you thallium trace, they thought at first, but Hale's cocktail was succinylcholine mimic, paralyzer. Not killer. Wears off. Ilara pushed up on elbows, the bed's linens whispering protest. Hale, black, the toast. Hargrove set the tray on the side table, glancing over his shoulder at the corridor's murmur. Contained. Voss shattered the glass crystals everywhere, proof undeniable. Blacks in the cells below, spilling to the yard boys flown in from London. Reginald's under house arrest, East Wing, guards on his door like flies on carrion. Hale, slipped the net last night, post-chaos. His Bentley's gone, but the roads are blocked moors crawling with choppers. Relief coiled tight in her chest, but suspicion uncoiled beside it. Ashford's warning, her vanishing act emeralds in the melee, then gone. And Voss? He saw me. The butler's lips thinned, a razor smile. Saw you, I, called you no simple weed before the collapse. Man's rethinking roots, it seems. He's downstairs, raging at the constables. Wants you questioned properly. Eat first, you'll need steel in your spine. She nodded, spooning porridge mechanical oats bland as regret, while Hargrove unpacked the subtext. Ashford's the wild card. Stayed till dawn, playing the fainting violet, then motored off to her club in the city. Whispers say she's Hale's ear gossips her blade. If she's circling back, Alara's arm tingled, pins returning. She's circling, that migraine cover for drops. Trunks on arrival, smuggler's hall, maybe docks on the plot. She flexed fingers, blade hand steady. The multi-tool lay on the nightstand, cleaned and sheathed Hargrove's touch. Blueprints, my burner. Safe in the drawer, tunnel sealed, but I've eyes on the grates. Agency ping? His voice dropped, probing her cover's edge. She shook her head, swallowing the last pill antidote cocktail, bitter as truth. Radio silence till extraction, but it's personal now. Jax's ghost flickered. Prieg's rein, his hand limp in hers. Loose ends, tied or not, left scars. Hargrove straightened, adjusting his cuffs with ritual precision. Personal's a luxury in this house. Voss summons at noon study. Play the simple but sharp. He's offering position security chief post-plot. Take it or ghost. Your call. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Alara to the room's hush. She rose, legs wobbling but holding, and crossed to the window. The moors unrolled below, mist-shrouded and merciless, the estate's wall a serpentine scar against the heather. Choppers thumped distant search grid, Hale's trail cold, but not frozen. Her reflection in the pane, braid frayed, freckles stark against pallor, green eyes hardened to jade, no simple weed. Voss's words, a thorn or olive branch. Noon found her in the study, a sanctum of oaken excess, walls lined with first editions that gathered dust like grudges. A massive desk, scarred by Voss's cane, the air thick with leather and cigar ash. Lord Harlan Voss perched behind it like a raptor on its perch, thinner than gala night, his silver hair disheveled, the dagger lapel pin askew on his dressing gown. Cancer's toll was merciless cheeks hollowed, eyes sunken, but rage propped him, a fire-banked fury. Sit, girl. No mockery in the bark, just command. Alara took the leather chair opposite, hands folded demure in her lap overalls, traded for a borrowed blouse and slacks from the staff wardrobe, still earth-stained at the hems. Simple, but not peasant. Voss steepled fingers, veins like twisted roots. Elara Kane, or whatever the yard digs up. You shout poison in my ballroom, shatter my toast literally, and collapse like a damn actress. Explain. She met his gaze, unflinching the ice-met jade, cracking first. Recon, my lord. I'm agency deep cover, witness protection post-Prague. Planted here to vanish, but your boot print? Anomalies don't lie. Black's tread, vial in the grotto, call to Hale's line. Reginald's notes, the Armagnac crystals. I saw the roots choking you. Voss's laugh rasped, dissolving to cough handkerchief to mouth, speckled red. He waved it off, eyes narrowing. Agency, Christ! Explains the eyes sharp as my blade. He tapped the dagger, spinning it on the blotter. Prague? Bratva mess, headlines last year. You the survivor? Her throat tightened Jax's face, bloodied but grinning. One of... Silence stretched, taut as wire. Voss leaned back, studying her like a balance sheet assets. Skills, loyalty proven, liabilities, secrets, the collapse's drama. Hargrove vouches says you rigged the traps, snatched the proof, saved my skin petal, no Alara. The name hung, concession. Why? I'm no saint. Empire's built on bones. Because monsters deserve their reckoning, she said, voice steady. Not betrayal from blood. And roots. You mock the dirt, but it's what holds the tree. He barked approval, genuine this time. Poetic steel. Reginald, my boy, Hale's puppet. Merger was his noose. I smelled it, but not the thallium tang. Black singing now brought for hire. 50 grand wired from Hale's Cayman's pot. But Ashford, she's the ghost. Slipped with Hale's driver last night, they say. Loose end. Ilara's arm twinged, numbness fading to ache. She's the ear. Dropped intel in her trunk stocks on your health, merger clauses. I glimpsed her at the toast watching, not fainting. Voss's fist clenched, dagger glinting. Then we prune her. You're in chief of security, effective now. Pays obscene, quarters in the east wing. No more loft muck. But betray me. Roots run both ways, my lord. She rose, alliance sealed in unsaid oaths. Hale's trail. Choppers have a Bentley shell on the 830 abandoned, switched plates. Man's a fox, holed in London by now, lawyers circling. Voss's eyes gleamed predatory. But foxes have dens. Dig. Dismissed, Alara exited the study. Corridors chill, raising goose flesh. Hargrove waited, ledger under arm. Well, chief, she murmured. The title foreign as a crown of thorns. Ashford first. Her club's a Nest Mayfair, the Serpentine. Burner's got agency access. Ping for tails. He nodded, slipping her a Manor keyring wolf-etched master set. Sells for black, if you want words. Man's cracking, but Brafa loyalty's glue. The sub-basement was a descent into damp hell. Stone steps slick with condensation, air tasting of mildew and despair. Iron doors flanked a corridor lit by caged bulbs, guards nodding her through new title's perk. Black cell was last, barred like a beast's den. The assassin slumped on a cot, wrist chained to the wall, face a map of bruises from the yard's persuasion. He looked up as the door clanged, eyes gunmetal, unbowed fixing on her with recognition's chill. Gardener bitch, come to gloat. Lara leaned against the bars, arms crossed. The multi-tool's weight in her pocket a comfort. Gloats for amateurs, Thomas. Or should I say, Dmitry Volkov Bratva Ledger from Prague, 2024. You were their safe house hit. Jax Riley's blood on your hands? Black's Volkov's lips curled, serpent tattoo peeking from his rolled sleeve. Prague ghost. Thought you drowned in the Vltava. Agency buried you deep. He shifted, chains rattling. What, vengeance now? Voss's lapdog? Justice, she corrected, voice steel. Hale hired you thallium special. But Reginald sweetened the pot, eh? Loose ends, the girl, me. He laughed, wet and mocking. Pups eager promised the merger scraps. Ashford's the key, her club's Hale's bolt hole. Serpentine lounge back room, safe behind the bar. Doc's there. Voss's will forged, leaving Reginald the throne. Hale's insurance. Her pulse quickened, twist uncoiling. Ashford, not ear, but architect. Trunks, forgeries, not gossip. And Hale, London? Volkov shrugged, chains jangling. Fox runs to earth, but serpents shed skins back up blade. Her name's Irina. Ex-KGB, Prague too. You remember her perfume? Jasmine, like your gardens. Jasmine, night bloom, the intruder's scent. Alara's blood-iced flashback. Prague alley, the woman's laugh as Jax fell, perfume clinging to the rain. Ashford arena, the mole who'd sold them out. Roots entwined, thorns from the past. She straightened, turning for the door. Thanks, Dmitri. Enjoy the cells. His call chased her. Agency won't save you twice, ghost. Serpents strike from the coil. Upstairs, the manor pulsed with midday bustle maids airing the ballroom. Shards swept, but echoes lingering. Hargrove met her in the hall, face grim. Choppers lost Hale Falls Trail to Heathrow, but no boarding. Ashford's club. Serpentine, yes. Members only. But I've a contact old bootboy days. Alara's mind mapped. London. 2 hours by Voss's Aston-armored keys in the garage. I'm going, tonight. Forge the invite. Say Voss's compliments. He hesitated, spectacles glinting. Last chief alone? Yards en route. Alone's how I root? She clasped his shoulder, fleeting gratitude. Hold the fort. If Irina's there, Hale follows. The drive blurred into autumnal smear. A-roads winding through russet leaves, the Aston's V12 purring menace. Alara's arm ached, but clarity sharpened Prague's betrayal crystallized. Irina's jasmine, the mole's whisper that doomed Jax. Agency cover had buried it. But Roots remembered. London swallowed her by dusk. The Serpentine Lounge a Mayfair viper's nest. Facade of understated elegance, brass plaque. Velvet ropes hiding the pulse of old money and older sins. Hargrove's forged invite Voss Industries emboss, parted the doorman like fog. Her slacks and blouse morphed with a borrowed coat into eccentric heiress. Inside, the lounge uncoiled, low ceilings smoked with cigar haze, booths upholstered in serpent green leather, a jazz trio murmuring sax-like secrets. Patrons, silver-haired tycoons nursing martinis, socialites with eyes like appraisals. Ashford Arena held court at the bar's end, emeralds subdued to pearls, her laugh a jasmine veil over steel. Alara slid onto a stool two removed, ordering gin neat clear head, agency rule. Irina's gaze flicked her way, recognition. No, just assessment then back to her companion. A shadow in corner booth, broad and hooded. Hale. Heart slamming, Alara palmed her burner under the bar snap photo. Encrypted ping to Hargrove. Target acquired. Backup. The bartender slick tattooed poured, eyes lingering. First time? Voss sends his regards. She nodded, sipping sharp. Irina rose, gliding toward the ladies' or back room. Alara followed at lag, lounge's hum masking her steps. Corridor velvet draped, a discreet door. Private. Locked, but bump key whispered it open. Inside, paneled sanctum, safe gleaming behind the bar wolf-proof, but Irina's domain. Docs scattered. Voss will forge sigil-handing empire to Reginald. Merger clauses laced with Hale's sabotage. Prague file her file. Agency redacted. Jax's photo paper clipped. Irina's note. Loose end tied. Payment. 2M. Jasmine bloomed perfume close. Alara spun. Multi-tool flashing. But Irina was faster vial in hand. Not thallium, but gas canister, hissing faint. Ghost from the Voltiva. The socialite purred. Accent slipping Russian silk. Jax screamed your name. Poetic, no? Roots in Prague, blooming here. Alara coughed. Eyes watering nerve agent. Mild but blinding. She lunged blind, blade grazing fabric Irina's gasp, then tackle, crashing over the bar. Glass shattered, safe door banging. Vials rolled, one cracking liquid fire on skin. Irina twisted free, nails raking Alara's face, emeralds drawing blood. Hale's waiting, merger's his, Voss rots. But the door burst Hargrove's contact. No, Hale, syringe in fist. Finish her, Irina! Alara rolled, foot sweeping Hale stumbling, syringe skittering. Irina pounced, but Alara's boot connected jaw crack, socialite slumping. Hale recovered, charging granite fury. Fight blurred, fists, furniture splintering, jasmine and blood mingling. Alara's blade nicked his arm toxin payback, then knee to groin, elbow to throat. He wheezed, collapsing amid the docks. Sirens wailed Hargrove's ping, yard closing. Irina stirred, eyes venom. Serpent sheds, ghost, more coils. Alara zip-tied them with bar rags, burner capturing the scene. Roots pruned, but shadows lingered Britva's reach, agency's ghosts. Outside choppers thumped extraction. But as constables swarmed, a burner buzz, unknown number. Prague unfinished, serpent rises. DV,